Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cleveland Sports Pros podcast. I'm Matt alongside my brother Nick. Nick, how are you doing today?
Good. Ready to talk Cleveland sports.
And we'll also talk other sports that we know our fans like. So we'll talk Super Bowl today. We'll talk about the Cavs, of course, and then a special note. We're going to talk about one of the greatest Indians and Guardians fans ever, John Adams, who sadly passed away the other day. So we definitely want to do a tribute for him. So Nick, do you want to start us off with that?
Yeah, so I was, you know, sitting down just at home when I got the news, and the app on my phone updated me. So, for those that may not be extremely familiar with what John Adams was known for, he was the iconic uh, Indians drummer that brought a bass drum to nearly every ball game for 46 years, seasons, however you want to word it. And it started back in 1973 when John was 21 years old. He bought a bass drum at a garage sale for $25, and he got permission. Remember, this is the old municipal stadium. He got permission to bring the drum and to bang on it as long as he sat atop of the bleachers. And he even didn't expect it to take on a life of its own, as he once said, but sure enough, it did. And it really uh, energized the team and the fans for nearly 5 decades.
Yeah, and don't quote me, but I believe he missed, aside from the COVID years when he was dealing with an illness, missed 45 home games over all
Correct.
those years.
Yes.
Just amazing. I mean, that every game that every one of us has gone to, or anyone since 1973, he was probably at every single one, realistically speaking, for the average person listening. And I know that baseball fans, some of their fondest memories, their first time going to the park or first time or any time is, the smell of the grass, the fireworks, the hot dogs, the organ player, things like that, the sound of the bat. But for Indians and Guardians fans, it was John Adams banging the drum, added to the list. And he was just such a special part of the team and the atmosphere in the stadium. Again, especially for all those years where they had sellout crowds, and then even in years where there are games where there are 9,000 people in the stands, he was up there banging that drum, and it was just always, amazing to be a part of.
That part was for nearly 30 years before they opened Jacobs Field in 1994. But I did want to mention a couple of memories, probably some of the greatest that not only John Adams experienced while he banged on that rally drum, but that we all remember. This won't be in any chronological order, but in 1994, when the Indians moved into Jacobs Field, they debuted against the Seattle Mariners and had a walk-off hit on a line drive to left field, hit by Wayne Kirby, who and it was just incredible how they were able to come from behind. Seattle was one of the best teams for a long period of time. Another Indians Seattle matchup was August 5th, 2001. In the seventh inning, Cleveland trailed by 12 runs, and you can bet on a Sunday night more than half the fans had gone home, had their doubts of a comeback, but John and stayed there with his drum banging on it, and he saw one of the greatest comebacks in Indians history as they beat an 80-50 Mariners team 15-14 in 11 innings.
Yeah, that one of many great memories that he was there to witness, of course, and fans were there to witness it with him. Nick, we've met John Adams and you more than I have on a handful of occasions, and just from my experience meeting him, he couldn't have been a nicer guy, and was always happy to take a picture with fans, talk to them and answer any questions they had. And Nick, do you want to tell us about any experiences you had when you got to talk with them?
Yeah, so John said he always loved what he loved most about not only attending the games and banging on the drum, but he met so many different people and got to know their story, you know, how they got interested in baseball and the Cleveland Indians. Um, John, one of the times I met him was at Tribe Fest in 2019, and I was there selling my first book, 22 Games of Fame, and John was actually in the booth right next to me. So that was a very special day for me that I got to meet him. I've gotten some autographs with him, and just one of the nicest guys you will meet. And one final point I'd like to mention on John Adams. So we all know what, we said how many great moments he witnessed. In 1995, just a year after the Indians opened Jacobs Field, they had a sellout streak of 455 consecutive games at home that lasted from June 12th, 1995 to April 4th, 2001. And they have a plaque that's listed as the fans. And not just in that entire stretch, but the entirety of the 1995 season, they had 48 come from behind wins, 13 and own extra innings at home, and 27 wins in their final at bat. So just very exciting moments that John and no fan would change for the world.
Yeah, of course.
And 3 World Series.
Yeah, and so John will be missed by us and every other Guardians fan out there, and we hope, and I'm sure the Guardians organization will hopefully keep his memory going. I don't know how exactly they'll do that. I know in recent years they've been playing audio of him playing the drums since he couldn't make it to games, but I imagine they'll continue doing something along those lines, or maybe something else. But we're excited to see how they'll keep his legacy going. Moving on the Cavs. So Nick, what's the latest going on with them?
Well, last night the Cavaliers hosted the Miami Heat, and a semi difficult, challenging matchup in my opinion, but one the Cavs could have and should have won if they stuck to their game plan. And not only did I notice it in the fourth quarter, but Darius Garland pointed out after the game, the fourth quarter was what hurt them. They took just unnecessary threes, trying to play the Miami Heat game the way they're able to play and make shots, and they played right into Miami's hand. Taylor Young is a very talented 3-point shooter, and not just in this game specifically, but in weeks past, I've seen Cavs players like Evan Mobley and Karis LeVert, who I don't think are the greatest 3-point threats on the Cavs team. I understand when you need a 3-pointer late in the game, you take it when it may seem like there's no other option, and they keep saying they're going to learn from their mistakes, but it just doesn't seem to appear that way when they play. I've spoken to, others that believe that Bickerstaff and the team, when they keep saying we're going to learn from our mistakes, they need to put in a little extra effort. That when they have the lead, to put their foot down, especially at home, uh, and just put the team away. And I know I just said at home, uh, also on the road, because despite last night's loss, they're a better home team than road, and they need to be able to do it home and away if they're going to compete in the playoffs.
Yeah, and with the team got off to such a hot start, I don't want to lower expectations or anything if it kind of seems like they're slumping, but right now their next game is on Thursday against the Grizzlies, who are a good team. That'll be a tough matchup, but that's home, so that of course is helpful to us. And then the Cavs have a stretch against some pretty bad teams, some worse than others, of course, but it'd be nice to get a 5 or 6 game win streak going. After Memphis on Thursday, they play at the Pacers, at the Wizards, host the Pistons, and then the Pelicans aren't too bad, but then the Bulls and Spurs, or those are all games that they should win. And then they go into Philadelphia and face the 76ers, who are going to be a good and tough Eastern Conference foe. So, Nick, what do you think about that set of upcoming games?
Yeah, so it's a good mix of home and road games, but like I said, and like they've also said, they need to learn from their mistakes, and they can't just talk the talk. They got to walk the walk and make it happen. When they're in close game situations, you know, back and forth, in a regular season game, that tends to be what it's like in the playoffs. And we're at the point of the regular season where teams are gonna maybe treat it like a postseason game because they're fighting for a top seed, and they just need to work harder. I know they can get it done. We've seen them do it. They started what 10-2 to begin the year, and uh, it's going to be exciting. Memphis is tough, even though you're hosting them, but they got John Morant and a bunch of other talented players. Uh, John Leclerc, I believe is Conchar. I apologize. John Conchar, a very talented power forward, um, tall power forward that can hit threes as well. So we'll see what they do tomorrow night. That's a 7:30 start at Cleveland.
Yep. So again, we think that they can certainly bounce back. They take care of business against Memphis, hopefully beat up on some lesser opponents, at least at this time, and kind of get their footing again. So, finish strong heading into the All-Star break. That'd be really good to see, I think. So, all right, we got one more football game coming up. The conference championships ended last week, and we have our Super Bowl matchup: the Kansas City Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll just offer a very brief kind of update on that. And Nick, what do you think?
Well, it's certainly going to be exciting, and going into the very beginning of the season, I'm not so sure on the expectations fans had on the Eagles outside of Philadelphia, but they sure lived up to what they could accomplish, and probably because Kansas City is an AFC team, we maybe knew more about them, and so the matchup doesn't surprise me. I'm I I I definitely still think Mahomes is going to get the job done, but I believe it's Jalen Hurts' second Super Bowl,
No.
first one. Um, and actually, uh, Jim Schwartz, the Browns' new defensive coordinator, uh, he coached on the Eagles, and had a good run with them along with Andrew Berry. So that's just something to point out. But the Super Bowl 57 will be in Phoenix on the 12th, and really looking forward to that matchup. Of course, we all want it to be the Browns someday, hopefully in the near future. But it's always exciting when that night comes around.
Yep, so definitely looking forward to the matchup. Two really good teams. I think definitely the two best teams in the NFL. I don't think it's kind of one of those weird years where you have maybe one really good opponent versus seemingly inferior opponent, or just two more inferior opponents that had these upsets or anything like that. I do think these are the best teams in the NFL. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think right now Philly is favored by 1.5 points, which is basically nothing. It's a toss up. We'll have to see how Pat Mahomes' ankle heals. He'll have 2 weeks to kind of rest up a little bit. But both teams, I think, are very exciting to watch and very good. So it should be a great game. But yeah, I guess as far as predictions, at this point, and I have every right to change it. I like Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid just having, more experience at this point. And also Andy Reid playing or coaching against his old team. So, he wants this one even more, I can imagine. And also got to give a shout out to, I guess both brothers, the Kelsey brothers from Cleveland Heights. So, one of them is going to go home with a ring. So I'm sure their family's very excited about that.
Yeah, Jason Kelsey under center for the Eagles, and Travis Kelsey, the tight end for the Chiefs. I know we've always said we'd love to have any player like that, but it'll be fun to watch. So I'm really looking forward to it. That's February 12th at 8 p.m.
6:30.
6:30.
Yeah, they always change it. So
Yeah. So
all right. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. So again, thank you everyone for listening and for your support. This has been the Cleveland Sports Pros podcast. Have a great day.